Hey guys, I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Connor Coggins.
Welcome back to Trekyards and our breakdown of the Discovery trailer, looking at all the little idiosyncrasies and
Yes.
things that we here at Trekyards love examining and picking apart and teaching you guys all about, or at least giving you new insights on things. Today we are going to be looking at computer screens, displays, whatever you want to call them. And as we've been doing with all these videos, we're going to tell you, or give you our opinions anyway, on whether we think it's a soft reboot, whether it takes place in the Prime universe, whether it's visually just a reboot, what's going on exactly, even if it's Kelvin-verse-esque.
Yeah, and computer displays are interesting because every ship runs on displays. I mean, yeah, absolutely. You know a Windows from a Mac. For an Ubuntu, they have different styles, and Star Trek, obviously from the '60s, limited budget. Well, that was then seen, updated, and refilmed and mirror darkly and other things where it looked a bit crisper and whatever. But it's 2017. What do you do? Is Star Trek a TV show, or is it a flowing continuity where these things make sense? And first of all, we want to take a look at the evolution of computer displays throughout because obviously we're looking at canonical Prime timeline. They've told us Discovery is Prime, canon, and they've told us the era. So we know those details. Put them together. We can do the breakdown. So we're starting with the Franklin from Star Trek Beyond. Now, this is the weird one because it was launched pre-NX-01, but it was at least used after the Federation, and it was recommissioned to be a Mako vessel and such. So it's likely they had redo the operating system and new LCARs and displays and such. We put it at the start though, because it could be either, but we're starting with the Franklin. So you've got clear display, lots of information being presented, bright green, and also you've got a control interface which has full-on joystick things, and you've got buttons and circle buttons, and yeah, it's very visceral but also technological, and that's, I guess, the first step.
And I never really considered this before, and we have talked about this, but the monitors almost look like the old 1980s monochromatic, one color, screen burn-in kind of displays.
Yeah, yeah, I actually like that.
But
yeah.
I do like the green coloring, as we've discussed before. But the next step in the evolution, of course, is the NX-01 era,
Yes.
and this is a very cluttered bridge, but it looks very submarine-esque, very modern military.
Yes.
You've got a lot of display screens. They got physical buttons on them, but you also have the touchscreen aspect as well. Knobs, switches, dials. There's a whole bunch going on that bridge.
And it's worth saying that they both, in the original seasons, had a much more blue styling, but in the fourth season, they made a conscious effort to advance it by, as you can see here, the TOS-style buttons on the monitors, and that was throughout the bridge, so it gave a familiar color scheme and showed that progression into something more familiar. But you're right, physical buttons, touchscreen buttons, but still limited monitors. You can tell they were just literally just Dell monitors bought off a shelf, 4.3. That was a limitation at that time, 2001. But pretty advanced, but also pretty sort of submarine and real. More advanced than the Franklin. I mean, do you think it is? Small, one color?
I would say yes. More color means more advancement. Like I said, monochromatic, old computer screens from the 80s.
Which is cool. It's only a couple of years later as well.
Yeah. So next up, of course, in the timeline, we got the Kelvin from the JJ 2009.
Although there's controversy with that, isn't there, Stuart? If it is Prime or not.
Everything, yes.
Is it Prime?
It should be Prime. If the Narada going back is the changing point in that universe, this ship should be Prime. Whether that is the case is debatable, of course, but anyway.
Yes.
Again, visceral buttons, very obvious, like knobs and throttles and joysticks. Also touchscreens, because we have to include those with our modern technology. So, again, I think it's a nice evolution from the NX-01 era.
Actually, yeah, they've gone away from having buttons that are just a button to buttons with lights and dials and lit up as if they're different functions. Now you can have a color change represents a damage or whatnot. That sort of evolution. Although I will just point out as little. If you look at the Kelvin, there's little circle dials which are on on the Franklin. They're also on the Kelvin. So they thought they were going to be clever and link those two eras. But it's literally 90 years apart. So there shouldn't be that. So bad job, guys. Even though you're trying, because you're trying to link your own films, but your own films aren't.
At least they were trying somewhat.
Yes, and again, if this isn't canon, if this isn't prime canon, this is all irrelevant, but technically speaking, they've told us it is, so we are putting it as part of this dissection. Then, a few years later, we have The Cage, the next in the canon line, and very familiar TOS styling, but a step behind it. You've got cool greys everywhere, you've got almost TOS displays, but a couple of you've got bigger screens on top, you've got more variety, but also not standing out as much. It's more muted, and touch buttons as well. So, sort of an in-between step, I guess, maybe?
Yeah, I would say so. The buttons have got more advanced. They're jelly bean style now, which could have fingerprint readers and things in them. Who knows why it does that? Plus, the displays that you see on the back, the main panel, could be touch displays as well. Never really went into it. Who knows? It does continue the visual tie-ins with the NX01 era as far as the color palette goes, the grays and the blacks, which I like, which I happen to like.
I hadn't thought about that before, but yeah.
But we do also have the gooseneck viewers, which they are a product of their times, guys. That's from the 60s for sure. Little mini TV sets in there. So
and we do retcon some stuff from The Cage, like Spock smiling, laughing, yelling, all those things, but some stuff we do sort of keep, because in the Menagerie it was shown as part of their past, so it is canon. But Stuart, we reached Discovery. We reached just about a year after The Cage. We now have Discovery, and it's now big.
Star Trek 6.
Well,
wait, it's not Star Trek 6.
It's bright blue. It's monitors everywhere. It's touchscreen. It's a lot of data. It's view screen data. It's very interactive, and also some buttons though. We noticed them in a previous shot. But that's a year after Cage though, and I'm sure we'll compare that in a second. But go straight to TOS, Stuart. Go straight to the most advanced. Go straight to 10 years after. What is the next advancement of Discovery?
We have TOS era. Beautiful, beautiful displays, bright colors, lots going on, lots of flashing buttons and numbers everywhere, and jelly beans, of course, again. A little bit different color palette. We got like blues and grays and reds now. Kind of got rid of some of the black influence. I mean, the main panels are black, obviously, but again, it's the next step for The Cage, I think. I mean, it makes sense. Progression-wise,
it's like just a more confident Cage. You know, every monitor is now doing their thing. There's a bit more information. The jelly beans are they're more glowing. They've got more life to them. Like you said, it could be screen readers and things. There's also more displays overall on the top and such. But very, very similar. But let's go to the comparison chart. This is them in time order. So Franklin is 2147. A few years later, and things we do see the Warp 3 test ship. And I'm pretty sure we see display monitors in Starfleet at the time. And I'm pretty sure the NX01 era, which means this is post NX01 era, or it's just them being silly. But hey, whichever, it can be both. And then Kelvin is 80 years later, so a big old jump. That's absolutely fine. 15 years later, okay, Cage. 1 year later, Discovery, and then 10 years later, TOS. Stuart, what do you think about the evolution of tech?
Facepalm. I don't. Again, it could be a plot point. It could be something in the script that says that Shinzao's not from their time. It does look more advanced as far as a ship goes. So who's to say it's not from the future for some reason? We just don't know.
Oh yeah, if you put this next to Enterprise E, Sovereign class, the most advanced, this would be absolutely the next step. In terms of, I guess, losing the LCARs and just showing more data. Because LCARs was a beautiful touch interface, but it didn't show as much data as it could do. Sometimes. This shows more data, I suppose, but it's sort of just all over the place, and there's no real form follows function. It's just sort of there.
But that's me stretching. As far as we know, this is exactly where it fits in this chart.
That's what they told us.
It does not work for me. Again, we've said this in other videos. It could be an experimental prototype. Don't really think that's something that's viable, but it should be said at least. Maybe it's an experimental ship.
Ah, you know what it is?
All new tech.
It's Windows 8. Windows 7 looked like XP, Evolution. Windows 8 was tiles, no one liked it. Didn't last that long. They skipped Windows 10, and it's actually very similar to Windows 7, just slight improvements. So this is the Windows 8 that no one likes, and they go right back to the Windows XP /7.
Well, that ends this discussion. You got it right. That's exactly what it was.
That's
But
the problem. When you tell them to invent a really bad, failed operating system, and they invent this, come on, guys. You're making us work for it, aren't you?
Yeah. And the thing is, with the Cage and the TOS, product of its time, the 60s. And those were super advanced for the time. They still look clean and beautiful if you film them properly, like in A Mirror Darkly.
Yep.
And you can update these monitors as James Cawley has done on his sets with actual computer displays that are touchscreen, that have different information, can change what they show, buttons float off. I mean, you can make this more advanced. So why would they go this route with Discovery? I understand bringing a new visual medium to a new audience and something that looks a future from what we have, but TOS accomplishes that on its own if you just update it a little bit and tweak it and film it properly, as you said.
Stylistic reboot rather than reboot.
Yes.
Now, also, you could argue that, you know, the Cage Constitution class, you know, there's 12 of them. They were new. They were the bright gleam of the fleet. You know, so the Cage, to say that because we see the Discovery in 2055 means that that's what it looks like in 2055. Well, no, because, you know, if the Constitution class in the 5th year of Kirk's mission is out, I doubt that when they came home, every display was still TOS. They were probably all motion picture at that point because Earth was the newest. So by that logic, you could have, if you connect it to the the Kelvin, you could say, hey, maybe this was up to 2245 tech. They've been out, they haven't updated their operating system for 15 years. The Cage is the newest ship. They got the newest tech, so therefore they look the newest, and that obviously then continues into TOS. So you can reverse engineer it just by saying the Shinju's a really old ship, but by golly, does it look new, advanced, hyper advanced in comparison. So to say this is an old rust bucket that's over 10 years old, although to be fair, the captain does say, I've served you for 7 years. So if this lady was a captain of the Shinju for 7 years, it's at least 7 years old, which would place it back to 6 years before the Cage was released, and if the Cage Enterprise was launched that year, although it wasn't because Admiral Robert April was in charge before that. So it'd be fun to see the Cage version with this style of LCARS and say that was the first incarnation, and then it advanced to the Cage, then it advanced to TOS. Again, this is one of those things where saying, is it, we're going to ask the question in a second, is it reboot, is it JJ, is it Kelvin, is it same thing, is it remaster, is it reboot? Or can you sort of fit it in? Well, this is one of the things I think you can sort of force fit it in if you really made it, you know, especially if the Franklin is post an X-01, which it quite likely could be, although, again, abandons all the TOS elements, which is ridiculous, but hey, whatever. Not as cut and dry. And yes, obviously, 60s should stay in the 60s, or should it? But TOS is a period drama. It tells us it's a 2055. If you want to make it prime, you want to make it canon, and make it look totally different, it's a reboot. Or is it, Stuart?
Well, as you just kind of said, TOS can be updated to look good, and they should have done that, in my opinion.
Just make them touch screens with more monetary stuff and just press them, it's fine. Yeah.
Or at least have the displays that they have in the Discovery trailer, but make them multicolored like the TOS. How hard is that? Use the primary colors.
Yeah.
Green, yellows, reds.
Yeah, but their uniforms are blue. Everything's blue in that ship. Even the lights in the corridors are blue. So
yeah. Okay, well, you know, as he said, the ship could be an older ship that they tried this, and then as the Cage comes along, that's the next step. Or, as I said earlier, could be a plot point, could be the Shinzaos from the future that went back in time.
Would totally fit too.
This is advanced tech. So, who knows? As far as we know, it fits in at 2255, and based on that alone, I'm going to say that this is a visual reboot, a soft reboot of the franchise. But it totally steps out of the box and misses the mark 100% for looking like what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. This really follows the Franklin. If you look at the two sort of comparative, single color, very visually similar. Green is grimier, older, I don't know. You can sort of say that to that, 100 years, yeah, they changed the colour. That would fit. Put the Kelvin in the middle, that would fit too. Which tells you that they're thinking along that reboot line. Then you look at the Prime, Bush, doesn't fit in there. So I'm going to say soft reboot, but very easily Kelvin timeline if they want to go that direction, because it has no TOS elements in it at all. None. It's just computer interface. So I'm going to say actually Kelvin timeline for that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So there you have it, guys. We would love to hear your opinions, though. Take a look at the chart that you have before you right now. It's behold it in all its glory. Samuel spent a lot of time working on it. So comment below what you think.
Yep.
But speaking of spending time to do these for you, it does take time, and that takes resources, and that takes, us out of our daily lives to do this kind of stuff for you guys, which we enjoy doing.
Full-time
Don't
job
get us
for
wrong.
me.
It is.
Part-time job
So,
for you. Yeah.
if you'd like to help us out, use your computer interface, which probably fits the time period you're in, unless you're using the old monochromatic 1980s computer. And head on over to patreon.com. If you can throw us like $1 a month, that'd be awesome. That would definitely help us out, whatever you can afford. Or head on over to Trekyards.com if you want to make a one-time donation. That'll also help with the advancement of this our program, our show, because a lot of Discovery stuff coming out in the years to come, hopefully.
Yes.
And we want to look at everything, and we need your help to do that, guys.
As you can tell, guys, we're really analysing everything, but we're giving you our thoughts and opinions, but also looking objectively at what exists. They call it Prime. It's the Prime timeline. In a timeline, make up your own mind. But if you want to support us and love what we're doing, and you can't give financially, that's absolutely fine. Just share wherever you think Trek fans would enjoy it. Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, Instagram, anywhere you think people would like it. Share the good Trekyards word and let other people know. Does Discovery fit? Does it not? We've done the research, so you don't have to. So until next time, another great Discovery video. I'm Connor Coggins.
And I'm Captain Foley.
And we'll see you next time.
We will.
Bye, guys.
Now, am I the the reformatted Captain? No.
I like Windows XP personally. I think it was a pretty great system. That's just me.
Windows 10. There you go.
Bye, guys.